All right, so thanks everybody so much for coming. My name is Rob McPherson. I really appreciate you all spending the time to come to this session. This is a topic about rentals, and it's very near and dear to my heart. So for the last 10 years, I've been obsessed with this concept of making it really easy to rent something just from a mobile phone. And this goes all the way back to 2015 when you started to see the bike shares on the street. And I would be launching bike shares on college campuses. And these weren't even electric, but we would deploy bikes and we'd put them at the top of the hill and we'd charge people $1 to rent to get on a trip. And people would spend that $1 and ride it down to the bottom of the hill. And my business would spend $20 to bring that bike up to the top of the hill. And this has started this journey of me about obsessing about the operational cost of rentals and trying to reduce that down to zero. So your rentals can be an extremely high margin profit center for you. Over time, I've gotten really interested in the golf cart space because who here rents golf carts already? And from your business, how often do you get calls from people that have seen somebody riding one of your carts down the road, and you get a call from somebody that says, "Hey, I just saw one of your carts driving by, can I rent one too?" Pretty common. In my whole life, I have never called Hertz because I have seen someone driving a Hyundai Elantra, and I'm like, "Hey, where can I get one of these Hyundai Elantras?" Golf carts are different like that. It's infectious, and when you see people renting, everybody wants to partake in them as well. And so I've gotten extremely interested in golf cart rentals. I work for a company called Joyride, which works across multiple different vehicle platforms or vehicle types. We started in the electric scooter and the electric bike space and moved now into larger vehicles. And we work with vehicle fleets across almost 500 cities now across the world. And our technology at heart is the mobile app interface to allow people to rent, and a device that plugs into the vehicle, an IoT device which makes the vehicle keyless, trackable, rentable, and geofenced, and just generally connected to the internet, so you can get all kinds of telemetry data from the vehicle. So for golf cart rentals, it's become a very competitive business because of demand. And in certain places here in Charleston, there's 10 different people I can call to get carts from. So what I want to talk about today is ways that you can differentiate your business and bring the vehicles closer to your customers and make it an incredibly seamless process for them to rent from you. But there's changing tastes in the consumer market, particularly when it comes to rentals. Rentals started typically as a phone call or as kind of emailing back and forth, asking for information, whether it's IDs or to sign these waivers, print them out, sign them, scan them, send them back. There's a lot of friction in the process, and the changing consumer tastes here. People want things that are on demand, and you as primarily dealers, you don't want to have to tie up staff with these tasks going back and forth. There's so much in the rental business which can just kind of kill your margin from an operating perspective, and rentals are a great way to market. They're a great way to get your business name out there, but you don't want to lose all your margin in kind of staff time, delivery time, all that stuff. So what I'm going to talk about specifically today is this kind of new model of what I call scan and go rentals. So traditionally there's been two ways to rent golf carts. One is your walk up and drive off. That works in very limited settings, and you've got to be kind of downtown where the real estate costs are high and you've got limited lot space. but people can walk in and drive off in a cart. It makes things pretty simple for you. The primary way currently is this middle one, the drop off and pick up, where you're limited by your fleet, but it really comes down to how many carts you can fit on a truck and what those delivery times look like. And usually requires that people are doing multiple day rentals to accommodate for the delivery fee. And delivery fees can cost at least $50 an hour to operate a truck with an employee. So you're charging at least $150 for a delivery fee, 3-day minimum. So it becomes very limiting quickly. And those labor and ops costs will kill you. So what I'm really focused on is this kind of new category of rentals, which I'll call scan and go rentals. And what these look like are putting your rental fleet at trusted partner locations where they house your fleet and you're operating the rentals through a software and hardware platform. Going this route kind of opens up this world of being able to distribute your rental fleet anywhere, so you're only limited by the number of partnerships you have. And these could stretch hundreds of miles from your location, depending on how you want to do it and how sophisticated your mobile technicians are. And it brings your operating cost structure way down, because no longer are you trucking things back and forth, but the carts remain on property. And in a perfect world, and we'll talk about this as we go through, in a perfect world, you are not talking to the customer or interfacing with them at all, and everything can kind of happen seamlessly of them renting the cart, bringing it back, without potentially you even knowing that transaction happened. So a couple different places that this opens up to are, I think my favorite and probably the one you have most experience with currently is campgrounds. Campgrounds are, they're everywhere. It's very easy to launch a golf cart fleet on campgrounds. A lot of them will take off-lease cars off golf carts, so they can be fairly cheap to get started. But as this trend grows, you'll see it also on hotels and resorts. That may get into the LSV space, so it's a little bit different. But college campuses, vacation communities, corporate campuses, RV parks, marinas. There's a lot of different options here, and I think ultimately there are going to be cities, particularly ones that have parking problems and kind of access to amenities problems, where cities will go the route of. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of Bird and Lime and some of these scooter companies where you can just take golf carts from point A to point B and leave it anywhere in the city and kind of run a managed fleet like that. I don't think we're quite there yet, but that's where the industry is trending. And that's once things get there, you can launch a 100 cart fleet pretty quickly. So by taking advantage of these partnerships, the goal here is to double your margin on your inventory. And I wanted to share this graph. All you guys are getting trade-ins, vehicles that are slightly used, past the point of being able to sell them new. And my objective here is to get you to think twice about leaving them on your showroom floor and trying to deploy these out into these locations that are, a fitting setting for the type of vehicle it is. For instance, if it's a nicer LSV, you might want to keep that at a nicer hotel in town. But it's a way for you to get those vehicles off your floor where they're going to stay at that kind of consistent sale margin going across, and to be getting them making incremental rental marginal dollars for you by having them out in the fleet.
And where I think this gets really powerful is you've got, in a traditional world of having to truck those carts frequently out, you're not making the marginal dollars to make this appealing enough. But if you can keep these vehicles off-site and constantly being rented, they're getting driven around town, people are seeing them, that's both raising your profile as a dealer, but also making higher enough margin, call it 40-50% on those rentals, where you're over time, over the course of a year, your blended margin between selling that vehicle eventually and the income you've made off of renting it are going to be double what you've traditionally made. I think the one like hard thing to get over here is that means like it's a used model, it's not on your floor. So if somebody comes in and is interested in that specific vehicle type, you're not going to have it there ready for them for a test ride. But what I would try to work on is having always like one version of that model available on your floor, so people know, they have the experience of driving it, and then it's like, oh, okay, you drove the black one here, but we've got the red one here in this rental fleet, and then we can bring it over to you to test ride, or you can accommodate the final test ride to get the sale done. But don't feel the need to keep that vehicle on your floor and taking up space when it could be making money for you elsewhere. So I wanted to give a case study on campgrounds too. I think campgrounds are the easiest way to kind of start in this space, particularly because you could start in a lower risk way, particularly with just like off-leash golf carts, which is what this company did. So this is a campground based outside of New York. They have roughly a 7-month season for their campground. So they bought 30 carts. So all in, do I have the? Oh, hold on. Let me get the economics here. Well, I'll start with the revenue numbers. So they were charging $83 a day for renting, and they would do, typically their rentals were 3 days over the weekend, and then the carts would sit on Tuesday through Friday. So they averaged about 9.5 rental days per month per cart, and typically every 3-day weekend was sold out for them. So over the 7-month period, they brought in $165K in revenue. And then to dig a little bit into the economics of it, so they were buying the carts at $4,000 a cart. They were on the Joyride platform for $349 per year. So the initial outlay was $130K. They had a deal with the campground where they would give the campground 15% of revenue, which is pretty typical. I've seen between 10 and 20%. There's a 10% fee for both credit cards, and then the Joyride platform fee, which is like a variable cost. Whenever there's a rental, there's the platform fee, so it's a variable fee there. So then their margin coming out was $124,000 over the course of the year, with a year one return on capital of 95%. I'm glossing over some of the some numbers around repair, insurance, and other things, but these were expenses they were already incurring. So I'm talking about just dollars in here. But so what this does for a fleet then, this was year one. So if you're looking at your return on capital over 5 years, you're looking at eventually a 5x return on investment on those initial carts. And as you guys know, some of these off-lease carts, if they're properly refurbed, they can last 5-10 years. So it'll keep delivering for you, and then so I say on the top here, no rush to sell. And then if you've got some used models in there, or however you want to approach this, if you're making this kind of margin on a rental product and you're not involved, it's not taking up staff time, there's no trucks, there's no heavy operating expenses for you, then you're not in any rush to sell those carts and get rid of them at a price below what you want. Because for every mile it gets rented, it's not depreciating faster than what you're making on this like marginal rental income. And so the more you could just keep leveraging that, and then I would say if you do want to sell your carts eventually, sell them to the point where they're at the replacement cost, and you can just get a new one fresh in the fleet. Okay, so a couple of like important topics, and like this, let's call this the question and answer session. So if you guys have any specific questions, but these are a couple of things. Let me just kind of quickly go through a couple of the considerations here, and some of the conversations I've had with customers on how they're thinking about this. And then if you guys have any questions about these kind of things, I'm happy to dive in it more deeply. So the first topic is the biggest one, is always insurance. And so there's two main forms of insurance in this space. There's kind of call it private property insurance. So if there's golf carts where there's no street legal requirements, they're all operated on private property, they're not leaving the properties. This is where you can get a much lower insurance premium. And I know brokers that do both kind of insurance. So I got a list of insurance brokers. So if you need that list, please let me know, and I'm happy to share it with you. But call this, the private property or micromobility insurance, but it's a contained fleet. And then you've got the LSV insurance, which is more expensive, and it's pretty much an auto policy at that point. But the good news is, over the last year, that insurance has gotten a lot cheaper. So I can introduce you guys to a few folks, if you need, that have brought some new insurance products into the market that really bring that down. So I think you'll see that grow heavily. So a question on signage. So in a lot of places where golf carts are rented, people will have a QR code on the golf cart. But essentially that's just like go to the website or call me or whatever it is. The key part of the sign that you have at the hotel, the campground, wherever it is, you want that person to know that if they scan the QR code on that vehicle, that it will turn on immediately. And this is an on-demand thing. People haven't fully wrapped their head around that yet. So that's the objective that you want to convey with the sign, because again, it really comes down to like, if they don't have to call you and they know that they can just scan the QR code and take off with the cart, that's the easier the better. On pricing, typically the rentals are done by the day. You can do discounts for 3-day, 7-day, and kind of get people to pay in advance for longer time periods. But what I think this unlocks is you can also rent by the hour too. And especially in the shoulder seasons where there's not as much demand, maybe people don't want to rent or don't want to spend the money for the entire day, you can set it up so they're renting only for a couple hours or the afternoon or whatever it is. But that way you can experiment and try to keep your daily revenue up throughout the slower seasons. Charging strategy. So I mentioned earlier that a lot of these host properties will want a revenue share, call it 10 to 20%. What you want to do with in exchange for that revenue share, you want the host to ideally take care of two pieces. One is to ensure that the carts are plugged in at the end of the ride. Joyride can enforce this a little bit with like a post-ride photo. So you could say, please plug in your cart, and we'll take a photo to kind of prove that at the end of the ride. So that's kind of one step, but you want to have the hotel or the campground employees be responsible for that, so you're not having to go out there and plug in carts at the end of the day. And the second is cleaning. You want, maybe you're doing a deep clean every week, but if you can have them just do, give it a once over each day to make sure there's, nothing flagrantly dirty about the cart, that goes a long way in just kind of keeping the fleet maintained. Also, I didn't mention this earlier, but Airbnbs, there are certain Airbnbs or VRBOs or vacation rentals where, they're huge, multiple families are in there, they're rented, the high season they're rented 80% of the time. I do think there's an incredible opportunity for that specific area as well, specifically because one, you've got like potentially a garage to keep the cart in, and two, that every time that Airbnb turns over, they'll have like a cleaning crew that comes through there, and then you can just work with the owner to make sure that cleaning crew is taking care of the golf cart as well. And then the last thing is dynamic pricing. Typically, if you're delivering golf carts, you've got one price for all the customers in your region. Your website says one price. With an app-based approach to rentals, that pricing can get much more dynamic depending on where you're keeping the carts, what kind of carts they are. You've got much more flexibility there to A/B test different prices, because as you guys know, on Halloween and 4th of July, like some of these holidays, like people are begging for golf carts, and they'll pay anything. So you can kind of get that surge pricing effect that you see with Uber and other places where depending on the demand of that weekend, and it's also very weather related too. So you can play around with pricing a lot more to maximize your margins. Yeah, so I'll go back to these just so you can see this, but that's the core of the presentation there. Hopefully I've introduced a couple new ideas on ways that you can monetize your fleet. Any questions on any of these topics or how any of this works?
I talked to you the other day. I know a little bit about how it works, but what about cell phone service areas? Like, you have dead spots. I mean, how's it going to be affected if it's in a campground or a rural spot that doesn't have really good coverage?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that we've worked through this year. So the Joyride device has, which I can show you later if you want, is it's roughly the size of a cell phone. Its primary form of communication is through cell, but then once a rental is activated, it will communicate with Bluetooth from that user. So all the campground would need is that the core spot where people pick up the carts has either Wi-Fi or cell service. And then, so that way the rental gets started, they put in there all their information, credit card, et cetera. And then if they're going out to more remote parts of the campground, then their digital key, which is the mobile app, that's just a Bluetooth connection at that point. So you could have zero cell phone service at that point, and the Bluetooth will work. Yeah?
Same scenario, but would that still allow it to time out if the rental is up, even if they're in that dead spot?
Yes, but typically the way we do rentals is that it's counting up.
Understood.
So if you haven't returned it by the day, it's just like you're now to the second day and you're getting charged for the second day.
So you said that there's a fee, like when they scan, and you guys charge them a fee. And we had talked about kind of me using it as asset tracking as well, like on campuses and things where they rent for an entire month. We want to keep track of it.
Right.
How does that fee based? Like, I mean, is it going to be once for me when I activate it, and then if I leave it activated for them the entire time, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean that would be slightly different. For those types of longer contracts.
Yeah.
And I'm.
Because I have a lot of month rentals and 2-month rentals and 6-month rentals.
Yeah. So that the fee that Joyride takes is only if somebody we process the payment, because we do all kinds of like fraud protections and chargeback, things like that.
And then if we can manage from the operators point of view.
Right, exactly. And they can operate it with the app too, just as like.
If we have it turned on for operator or
Yeah.
controller or whatever you call it.
Yeah. So at that point, you're only paying the base fee, which is just for the device, which gives you the GPS and all the controls.
Okay.
But if you're not processing payment, then we're not taking a fee.
So you charge, I was just curious, is it something like you charge per rental, or is it a yearly fee you're buying the box to start?
The box and the software is a yearly subscription because it's got the data plan and everything.
Which is,
It's $349 per year, so it comes out to $29 a month. And then if we're doing the rentals and charging the credit cards, then we take the 7% fee. Yeah.
and then it's 7% per rental fee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that comes off our part, or does that just get billed to the customer?
Billed to the customer.
Okay, cool. So we're making our same margin, and then they're just having to pay a 7% fee to be able to use it to go around.
Correct. Yeah.
Does your device track like any analytics or like the routes or anything?
Yeah. So you'll have a full history on where they've been at all times. It's got the breadcrumb data. We also do like geofences and things like that to protect the vehicle and make sure they're in the right place.
Sorry.
What about like theft and stuff like that? They take the vehicle, your device will reconnect at some point and you'll track it if it leaves the area?
Yeah, so first you'll get a warning that it's left the service area geofence, and then it will continue to track it, and then you can remotely disable the cart. So,
Can you have it automatically shut down if it goes outside the geofence, or is that get
yeah, I mean it will be. Yes, you can actually. You can automatic because like this would be in a situation where somebody had rented. If the cart's on, they leave for a minute. We do have an auto shut-off feature, but if they leave for a minute, somebody else grabs it and tries to go off with it, you can do it. So if it crosses that geofence, it'll shut off,
Okay.
and then whoever stole it will be.
So do they have a key of any type to be able to make that vehicle activate, be able to do something like that? So if they do go to the bathroom, at a place and some kid hops on it and it's not activated, I mean, is there a way for it to, only be active to the customer that has it?
Yeah, so you could set it so the phone has to be next to the device
Okay.
for it to work, and then if you move away, then the car will automatically shut down.
Okay, cool.
Something I did with the campground, one of the biggest campgrounds we're in, is instead of charging them or giving them 10, 15, 20% of our rental revenue, I basically advertise it to them as I'm going to offer amenity in the park for them. And so basically they don't charge me to have the cars there. And that worked out really well for them. So they're not having to staff it, they're not having to man it.
Yeah.
They didn't have to buy them, all of that, but it's another service to their customers. And instead of giving them 10, 15%, because like, look, they're monetary gain out of it, instead of giving them 10, 15%, I bought a site or a permanent site, or what they call a permanent seasonal site. So I just bought another site there to store our cards at and offer the amenity to them. So say $5,000 a year for the seasonal site.
There you go.
Buy another site instead of giving them 20% of our income.
Yeah.
So really cool offered as amenity to them. Gets more customers, their customers are happy because they cruise around their campgrounds or whatever, but beaches forever. But not having to wait 20% of our market either.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean,
So that's something we can add on there too.
yeah, start where you can. Also, I should note too that I'm going to the, I think it's called the Outdoor Hospitality Conference in Kentucky in November, and so Joyride is constantly marketing this service to different, kind of targeted audiences around the web. So campground, RV parks, et cetera. But we're always looking for local dealers to run these programs through because we don't operate ourselves. So, if you're interested in this, but you don't have any kind of relationships with campgrounds, but you're interested in ones in your area that may want to do this, please let me know. I'm happy to play matchmaker here. They come up to us at the show, and I say, oh, I know somebody in northern Alabama that's looking to do this. I'd be happy to connect you. So please stay in touch there. I'm happy to help make those connections. Yeah.
I've got about 70 carts in my rental fleet, and I've been operating for 9 years on the pickup delivery
Yeah.
style. Insurance is a big thing. I'm located in Southwest Florida, so that's when everybody up north is tired of the cold for the winter, and they come to Florida, and they want to stay there a month, a couple months. Insurance is a big thing, and the ownership of my business, we originally got a policy for $1 million per incident coverage, and they keep threatening they're going to drop it. Nobody else in Florida is willing to offer anything over $100,000 coverage per incident. And knock on wood, until I have to file a claim, hopefully this insurance company will keep renewing for me. But they just doubled my premium
Yeah.
for this year. And a lot of companies down in Florida aren't willing to write LSV insurance, very limited. So, I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, if all of a sudden my company decides not to cover $1 million policy, I'm going to be out of the rental business, because we're not going to want to be self-insured to cover anything over a $100,000 claim.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So more and more companies need to wake up, open their eyes, because Florida right now is the #1 state of privately owned golf carts. So the insurance is a big thing. And, my insurance company is requiring me that if I have carts at my office for rental, people walk up and want to get their rental right there. If I have them there, I have to keep them under lock and key. I got to run cables to them with a padlock, because I had one stolen a couple years ago that was on a rental, a boater who couldn't park his car by the boat, so he rented a golf cart. And insurance covered it,
Wrap it up.
but they required me to lock it down. So I'm worried about what they're doing
outside,
outside.
so we can kind of wrap.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat with you about that. I've got a couple ideas, but thank you all so much for coming. Really appreciate it. And also, if you want to see Joyride's at booth number 9, if you want to see the platform at work.